Hey guys, Bite Size here, and today I want to answer a simple question. What's it actually like to level a Devourer Demon Hunter? It's a brand new spec, and instead of boosting it instantly, I decided I'd level it sort of the old-fashioned way. Because if you're going to learn something new, especially a spec that looks this different, I think it's better to understand it gradually rather than just being thrown into max level, which I find kind of overwhelming personally. So let's start at level 1. First impressions. So immediately you get Void Blade, essentially Warrior Charge, or edgy and purple. Reap, a short cooldown single target nuke. Consume, your filler, which you can actually cast while moving, which is really nice. And Shift, a targeted dash that kind of feels like Blink, but you choose where you're going. So, first impression, it's cool. The mobility is instantly noticeable, which is exactly what you want from a Demon Hunter. Even at level 1, it feels fluid, fast, and responsive. It's a strong foundation, but foundations are one thing. How does it develop? So let's skip ahead into the level 20s, and things are getting a little more interesting. You've got the usual Demon Hunter toolkit, the AoE Stun, the Magic Dispel, AoE Fear, a good Interrupt, and a really strong defensive. But more importantly, the first defining Devourer ability arrives, Void Ray. And yes, I'm not going to lie, this is basically I-Beam, but blue. Do I mind that? No. I-Beam's cool, therefore Void Ray is cool. It finally gives you some meaningful AoE as well, which you desperately needed. But here's the issue that I'm finding. Outside of Void Ray, you don't really have any AoE. In dungeons, especially on a quick, low HP trash pull, you're often just waiting. You're just waiting to be able to Void Ray. It feels really odd in retail where almost every other spec has some kind of on-demand AoE early on. You also unlock Soul Immolation, which is like Immolation Aura's slightly more masochistic cousin. It damages you, and at this level, noticeably so, dealing around a 1/7 of my HP, but it generates Fury and Soul Fragments. These fragments are everything. They generate Fury when they're collected, they fuel your Void Metamorphosis, and they enable a big finisher, Collapsing Star, which you're able to cast after you collect 30 more fragments while in a Void Metamorphosis. Essentially, Void Metamorphosis is clearly inspired by Legion Shadow Priest's version of Void Form. Your resource is draining, and you're fighting to sustain it. The better you play, the longer it lasts. Personally, I really like this design philosophy. I found Legion Shadow Priest a lot of fun for this exact reason. So that's the current gameplay loop. Collect 50 soul fragments, enter your Void Metamorphosis, collect 30 more inside of it, and then cast Collapsing Star. A huge channel that promises cataclysmic damage. On paper, it sounds incredible, but in practice at this level, I can't even cast it. Not consistently anyway. I understand that this is likely just because I'm missing loads of talents, but it's a clear oversight on Blizzard's part. It feels like it just doesn't really belong here right now, and it's really kind of frustrating. It does make me question, did Blizzard actually test leveling this spec, or did they fully expect that 99% of people are going to boost one? I think honestly the answer is the latter. It just doesn't feel like it was designed with leveling in mind. Retail leveling in general feels like a byproduct, something that you pass and skip rather than experience. And with Devourer, I think it's even more noticeable. The fact that even after you're high enough level to use the ability, you can't really cast your big finisher, and you don't feel impactful or like you've really got any options on short trash pulls. But I've committed to this experiment and I'm going to continue to level. And I fully expect that the experience is going to improve. So around level 40 and Collapsing Star is finally online. Talents like Entropy, which passively generate soul fragments even out of combat, massively reduce your setup time. The spec feels more fluid, Void Meta uptime improved, and Collapsing Star, visually, it's incredible. The animation, a 10 out of 10. Sound design, fantastic. It's a really, really cool and satisfying ability. But the damage? I've got to admit, it's a lot softer than I expected. For such a long channel time ability with a really heavy setup and something that's incredibly punishing if you don't finish the cast for whatever reason, you want it to feel absolutely devastating. But it seems to hit even less than your Reap, which just feels wrong. I've heard that Apex talents in Midnight may address this, but honestly right now, for the amount of effort that it takes to get to it, it feels undertuned to me. I think by around late level 40, I've been noticing a pattern emerge. Devourer is either extremely satisfying or extremely frustrating. The biggest issue? There's still no true instant AoE button. Outside of your Void Ray and Collapsing Star, if a large trash pack is getting melted by other DPS, you genuinely feel irrelevant. And I just feel like that shouldn't happen in 2026 retail WoW. Even something simple like a 30-second AoE cooldown would smooth that out tremendously. It honestly kinda feels like Devourer is just missing a button. Just one extra thing to really bring the spec together. Not only that, but let's talk a bit about Collapsing Star's risk factor. If the mob dies mid-channel, the boss goes immune, the boss or the target phases for whatever reason, or the mob moves away from your short range, you honestly get punished really heavily. In theory, that's skill expression, but in reality, that just feels frustrating sometimes. Take this example from Azure Vault's Grey Wing. Frequent transitions make Void meta awkward as hell during this boss. There's not really any good way to not feel like you're wasting something here, and depending on the kind of content that you're doing and the boss and encounter design within it, Devourer could potentially feel really frustrating. When you're in a fight like this, where transitions are frequent and inevitable, it stops feeling tactical and it just feels inconvenient instead. But let's jump ahead again into the level 50s. And I must admit, at this point, the spec improved significantly for me. Void Metamorphosis lasts longer. The fragment economy stabilizes and the gameplay loop really starts to click. And then I found one talent really changed everything. Eradicate. After you fully channel a Void Ray, your next Reap deals AoE damage in a cone in front of you to 5 targets. It gains a new animation and looks incredible, and it finally gives the spec a little bit more momentum in AoE scenarios. Honestly, this talent elevated Devourer massively for me. At this point, I'm genuinely enjoying the spec. It still isn't complex, and I don't think it's meant to be, but it feels cohesive, fast, and fluid. But let's jump way ahead now into the level 70s, where we get hero talents. You've got Felscarred, which is more of your sort of melee combo hero talents, and you've got Annihilator, which looks to be the option that you'd pick if you want to play this as a pure ranged DPS spec. Personally, I'm not that interested in the whole weaving ranged and melee aspect, so I've picked Annihilator. It's also brand new and shiny, so it's a little bit more interesting to me. The core idea of this hero talent tree? Stack up Void Meteors that you then drop on your enemies when you cast Reap. Visually, this is outstanding. It reinforces the cosmic Devourer identity beautifully. Damage-wise, it seems pretty solid in both single target and AoE. But here's the critique that I have. Almost everything is passive. It's all stat boosts and damage increases. The only rotational interaction is mass acceleration, which resets the cooldown of Reap during Void Metamorphosis. Overall, these hero talents, they're good, but I feel like they could have been more interesting. They don't deepen the gameplay, they just enhance it numerically. But for the visuals alone, I'd give it a strong 7 out of 10. Thematic excellence, but mechanically, a little bit conservative. So, what's the final verdict? Should you level a Devourer Demon Hunter? Honestly, no, you shouldn't. If you've got a boost, I recommend that you just use the boost. The spec isn't so complicated that if you boost, you're going to feel overwhelmed. You should still be able to pick it up fairly easily. And the early leveling experience lacks cohesion and honestly feels like an afterthought. So I think skipping it with a boost is honestly the best play here. But is Devourer worth playing at max level? Yeah, absolutely. It's flashy, it's visually striking, it's fluid, fast-paced, pretty easy to pick up, and has really satisfying burst windows. I think as a main, it might become a little bit repetitive due to its simplicity, but as an alt character, I think it's perfect. If you enjoyed a Demon Hunter class fantasy, but you want something a little bit more cosmic and, well, ranged, Devourer is a really strong addition. I still think it's missing one defining button, something that can round out its AoE identity, especially out of Void Metamorphosis. And I think the Annihilator hero talents could have push the complexity of the spec a little bit further. But overall, it's a really fun spec, and in the end, that's all that matters. But what about you guys? Let me know. Do you think Devourer is going to be your main? Is it going to be an alt? Or are you going to completely skip it entirely? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.